So this video is on Bandura, Ross and Ross's variation in 1963, imitation of film-mediated aggressive models. So the aims were to build on the previous 1961 study, to see if aggression on film would be imitated as well, and to see if those frustrated prior to watching the aggression would show more aggression than those who weren't previously irritated. So the procedure, sample and conditions, you'll note the similarity here to 1961. There were 48 boys and 48 girls from the same Stanford University that the first sample from 1961 was selected from, and they were aged between 3 and 6 years, exactly the same as they were in 1961. There was a female experimenter with male and female models. There were 3 experimental groups and a control group by which they were able to compare. Now, the real aggression group watched an aggressive human model, and that was exactly like 1961. The filmed aggression group watched the same model, but it was on a film, and the aggressive cartoon character group watched the cartoon character being aggressive. Now, the procedure for the real-life aggression condition, the data for the control group condition were all used from the 1961 study, and in the 1963 study, it was only the filmed aggressive model condition and the cartoon aggressive condition that were carried out and the data was gathered from. Now, the IV, Bandura manipulated 2 sets of IVs, so actually the first one was whether the aggressive role model was real, filmed or a cartoon character, and the second was whether the role model was of the same sex or the opposite sex to the child. There was also a control condition where the children did not see the role model at all, and this was called, there was no non-aggressive model in this study. Bandura also studied a natural varying IV, which was whether the child was male or female. So this makes the study both a lab experiment and a natural experiment, and it has a matched pairs design because each child was only in one condition once, but they'd been matched on starting levels of aggression. Now the DV, Bandura's observers recorded the number of verbal, physical, mallet and gunplay aggressive actions that the children carried out, and they also counted the number of acts of non-imitative aggression. So that means aggressive acts, but not necessarily aggressive acts that they saw exactly from the role model. So for example, if they saw the role model hitting the bobo doll with a mallet, a non-imitative aggressive act might be kicking the bobo doll because the action wasn't exactly the same, but it was an action of aggressive intent. So what happened this time? So in the human film aggression condition, the children were entered into a darkened room and they were working on potato prints while the film was running 6 feet away from them. Now in the cartoon character condition, the film was turned on casually by the experimenter. The character was dressed as a female cat and was behaving as a cat, and that was what made up the cartoon character, and everything in the film was artificial and there was cartoon music at the end. Now, the aggression was measured in another room, so the children were made mildly aggressive before going into the room to play. Now, the play materials were exactly the same as the 1961 study. This was a control that was maintained by Bandura. The behaviour was recorded by a one-way mirror by 2 observers, so again the same as 61. Each observation lasted 20 minutes and the observation took place every 5 seconds. Responses that were recorded were imitative aggression, partially imitative aggression, mallet aggression, non-imitative aggression and aggressive gunplay. So the results, you can see at once that the control group carried out half as much aggressive actions as the other groups. However, there's no significant difference between the live models and the filmed or cartoon models. When you look into the data, the cartoon produced more non-imitative aggression, but then less imitative aggression, whereas the human models were the other way around. All 3 aggressive groups differed significantly from the control group, and there was no significant difference between the real life or the film. Because Bandura filmed this study, there is also qualitative data as well as quantitative data, as all footage in the video clips you can actually see from this variation. You can actually see some on YouTube if you want to go and have a look. So Bandura concluded that children will imitate filmed aggression in exactly the same way as live aggressive role models. He also concluded that watching filmed violence is not cathartic. Now this is because Freud's idea that watching aggression can be cathartic in the sense of watching aggression allows you to vent aggression and is actually a healthy way of managing aggression, but Freud proved that this is not the same way. This is not true. Instead of becoming less aggressive after watching the aggressive film or the cartoon, the children actually showed more aggression. So it directly contradicts what Freud said. Bandura was surprised to see how much the cartoon role model was imitated because he expected there to be less imitation as the role model became less realistic. So because children would identify less with it, but this wasn't the case. The cartoon aggression actually seemed to weaken social inhibitions generally, and because there was less imitative aggression, but there was more non-imitative aggression in the cartoon condition. General evaluation then, although I must implore you to please have a look at your booklets that I gave you of the whole learning approach, there is a much more detailed grave evaluation of all 3 Bandura studies in there that I advise you to look at, particularly if you want to get a higher level mark. But generally, the findings are not representative to the wider population, so they lack generalisability from the sample to the target population, because yet again, all the children were from the same university as Stanford University in America, which is actually biased. In terms of reliability, the controls that were in place were really strong, and it allowed cause and effect conclusions to be drawn. This gives it scientific credibility, and also the inter-observer reliability was maintained because there were 2 observers. It is useful because it allows us to see how role models influence children, and therefore helps us to understand the importance of positive role models, including the effects of the media on children's behaviour. However, it's still an artificial setting with artificial tasks. There were no parents to assist in preventing aggression and no punishment for the models who were behaving aggressively. Therefore, the children may not have seen it as wrong. Also, there is a possibility of demand characteristics if the children understood what was going on. It is considered to be unethical to encourage children to behave in this way and in an aggressive way, and providing a model may be viewed as even more unethical because you're almost seen as promoting aggressive behaviour within the children. Please make sure that you watch the 1965 video as well, because you have to know all 3 Bandura studies.